Alright guys, so we are working on the 434 big bore cylinder here for the spare engine build for the Z400. Have it under a trash bag, that way no dust or nothing gets into it. Cylinder head is here, and the big bore cylinder is here, along with a brand new CP piston. Now this is a 94 millimeter cylinder, which is a 434 big bore, or as some people like to call it, a 440. What's on the Z400 right now is an Athena 434 kit, which comes with a Vertex piston, and everything comes ready to go. Even the rings are gapped and everything. It's still important to check them, and that is what this video is about right here, is about checking your ring gap. So I got all of this from, I forget which seller on eBay, but he basically includes a big bore cylinder and a brand new CP piston. I'm pretty sure this is like a no-name cylinder, but it's pretty high quality, and just looking it over and feeling it, it looks just like the Cylinder Works kit. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they were made in the same factory. So, but anyway, whether it's a 4-stroke or a 2-stroke and you're fitting a new piston in, you always need to check the ring gap. And the reason you need to do that is because the piston, the rings, and the cylinder all expand at different rates, and having too much of a gap will obviously let blow-by happen. You'll have a loss of power. There's a bunch of other reasons, and obviously if you have the gap too tight, it can expand too quickly. It can score your cylinder, your piston. It cannot allow, it can wipe oil away off the piston skirt. It can do a number of bad things. So you need to make sure that the ring gap is within specifications and within tolerance, whether be it through your manual or through the instructions that come with your piston. And that's what I usually like to use, is the instructions that come with the piston. So if we go over here, now on a 4-stroke piston real quick, you typically, sometimes there are single ring, but typically you have a top ring, a second ring, and then you have the oil, like the oil retainer ring, which is basically like an expander with two little rings on, like, that sandwich it. But in this case, I've got a 2-ring piston, and you can always tell the top compression ring is like more of a shinier color. This will be your compression, your top ring. The second ring is usually a darker color. It's usually also a little bit thicker too, and that's just an easy way to tell between your top and your second ring. Also, your piston rings need to be facing up, and they usually have a dot or a letter or a number. In this case, both the top ring and the second ring have an N. I don't know if you can see that or not, but so this one was too tight, and I already gapped this top ring, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys the second ring. But before you do any of that, you need to do a couple things. You need to figure out the diameter of your cylinder. In this case, I know it's a 94 millimeter, it's brand new. And then you need to put your ring one by one into the cylinder. And what I like to do, and what most people do, is you put the ring in the cylinder, and then you use the piston itself to push it down into the cylinder and make sure it's square and flush. And that's what I like to do. I like to push the piston down until usually the skirt of the main body of the piston, I would say, is kind of flush or just below the cylinder deck there. So as you can see, the ring is down in there, nice and flush, and there's a little bit of a gap, but it is just barely too tight. So first thing we need to do is a little bit of math. And what we got here, what according to this here, I like to use this isn't being ridden on the street. Obviously that has a little bit narrower of a ring gap. This is kind of being ridden hard, not really raced, but ridden pretty hard. So I'm going to use the drag racing and road racing chart right here. And basically you're going to take the bore and you're going to times it by 0.005 inches, and that is going to give you your ring gap. But before you do that, since the ring gap is in inches, you need to convert your bore, your millimeters, into inches. And the easiest way to do that is to divide it by 25.4. That's a good conversion rating from millimeters to inches. You can go on Google and type in inch to millimeter, or whatever, millimeter to inch conversion. But anyway, 94 millimeters is 3.7 inches. times 0.005 inches comes out to 0.018 inch ring gap, which is exactly what I achieved with the top ring. Now, if your gap is too big, then you have other issues. You either need to send the cylinder out and have it replated if it's nickel sill, or if it's just a sleeve, then you might need to get new rings or a new piston. So, but in this case, they're too tight. It's an easy fix. You need to file them, and you can use a hand file. It's a little tricky and not very precise, but I actually bought a ring gap filer, which is this dude right here. You can get it on Amazon, 35 bucks or so. I can put the link down in the description of that. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that, but it's a simple little device. They have powered ones, hand crank ones, and I am using a hand crank one. So anyway, back to the math here. Top ring is 0.18 inches. The second ring, if you go back to the chart, it's going to say 0.004 to 0.008 bigger ring gap than the top ring. And I'm going to put that right in the middle at 0.006, which is going to come out to 0.024 inches for that second ring gap. So that's what I need to achieve for the second ring gap, which if we turn this around, the top ring gap is here, right here, which I've already done that one. That'll be the second ring gap there, right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this GoPro up, and it's basically just trial and error. You just gotta grind a little bit and or file a little bit, put it back in and recheck. And you just wanna do a little bit at a time because you don't wanna file too much off. Obviously you can go too far and you gotta order new rings. So this one, I need to get 0.24. I believe 0.22 and 0.23 fit in. I think 0.23. Okay, so 0.23 is not going in, but 0.22 went in. Yeah, 0.22 goes in. So we're gonna take this dude out, file it just a little bit, put it back in and recheck. So here we go. All right guys, got her all filed up. That really only took, like, just to show you how this works, I usually put the ring on here and hold it pretty tight. I usually only file one side of the ring, and I'll crank it this way. That way it kind of pushes the ring down onto the surface of this little ring grinder here. Really only took like 3 or 4 revolutions, and the 0.24 inch feeler gauge fits in there with just a little bit of resistance, so it's perfect. That's exactly what you want. You don't want it to be real tight, you don't want it to be real loose, you just want a little bit, just a little bit of resistance. So we are good to go there on the ring gaps. I'm gonna get these installed and probably go ahead and get this cylinder installed tonight. I'm not going to go over ring orientation. There's a bunch of different theories on that. For me, I just follow the OEM service manual, and basically all you're really trying to accomplish is you just don't want your rings, specifically mainly your top two, you just don't want the gaps to be on top of one another. These 4-stroke pistons don't have little retaining pins in them like a 2-stroke piston does, so you can kind of orient them however you want. I can't remember exactly how these do, but I'm almost positive like the top one you clock this way, and then the next one you clock, you know, that way. Some people will go 12 o'clock and then 6 o'clock, and then there's all different ways you can do it. Every builder has a different theory on it and everything, so I'm going to let you decide that for yourself, but I just go off what the OEM manual says to do as far as ring gap placement on all of the piston rings. But again, I just wanted to reiterate, when you guys get a new big bore cylinder, a lot of people buy these off Amazon or eBay, regardless of the machine you're working on, and they just slap them on. And I will say, you know, 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to be just fine. Like nothing will probably happen. But if you have the knowledge and wherewithal to do so, I think you should check the ring gap before you put it together. You're going to prevent smoking. You know, if the ring gap's too big, you'll prevent oil loss, compression loss. If it's too tight, you're gonna possibly prevent damage. So, if the manual, you know, if there's information out there that calls for something, I think it's important to at least try to adhere by it if possible. So, I just wanted to make a quick video. There's a ton out there on YouTube. I just figured most of the Z400 crowd, ATV crowd in general, probably never does this. So, just something I wanted to do. Appreciate you guys watching.